Considered one of Mexico's most prominent artists, Frida Kahlo painted strongly personal work that was bold and energetic. At the point when Frida Kahlo's 1949 oil painting, Diego and I, sold for $34.9 million at a Sotheby's sale in New York, it turned into the most significant work of Latin American art ever sold at a closeout. In this video, we will run down 10 amazing facts about Frida Kahlo. This section is for those who know nothing about Frida Kahlo. Frida was the third of 4 little girls brought into the world to a German-Hungarian Jewish dad and Mexican mother of Spanish descent. Frida Kahlo carried on with an agreeable youth in Mexico. As a kid, she tried to turn into a specialist, and her introduction to art started with her helping her dad, a photographer, in creating pictures. She likewise got direction from her dad's companion, the printmaker Fernando Fernandez. Determined to have polio at 6 years old, Frida was incapacitated for a really long time, and the illness was to influence as long as she can remember, with her right leg seriously twisted. In 1922, she was admitted to the renowned National Preparatory School in Mexico City. A progressive artist who was proficient in Spanish, English, and German, Frida turned into an individual from the Los Cachuchas, an extreme group that examined communist standards. It was during this time that she met her most memorable sweetheart, law student Alejandro Gomez Arias. The relationship finished after a road mishap, because of which Kahlo was restricted to a hospital for a really long time, with various fractures, and went through a medical procedure for spinal wounds. At 22 years old, she married the Mexican muralist Diego Rivera, who was over 20 years her senior. While the two had common normal political beliefs, they traveled to the United States. Their marriage was tempestuous and overflowing with treachery. They separated in 1939, just to remarry in 1940. Now that we have known a lot about her background, let's start with the rundown. 10. She believed her introduction to the world should agree with the start of the Mexican Revolution. Frida Kahlo was brought into the world on July 6, 1907, in Coyoacán, Mexico City. However, she frequently told individuals she was brought into the world in 1910, 3 years after her genuine birth, so that individuals would straightforwardly connect her with the Mexican Revolution that started in 1910. Kahlo turned into an epitome of Mexican culture, particularly native culture, yet she, at the end of the day, wasn't completely Mexican. Her dad was conceived Karl Wilhelm Kahlo in Germany, both of Jewish and Hungarian parentage, as Frida guaranteed, or from a long queue of German Lutherans, as some new exploration contends. Frida's mum, Matilda Calderon, was of native Mexican and Spanish descent. 9. Her work roots set the standard for a Latin American piece of art. Frida Kahlo was a focal figure in the Neo-Mexicanismo art movement in Mexico, which arose during the 1970s. Her craft has been called society workmanship because of conventional components, and some call it surrealist. However, Kahlo herself said, "They thought I was a surrealist, yet I wasn't. I never painted dreams. I painted my own existence." In May 2006, her self-representation Roots sold for $5.6 million, establishing a sales standard for a Latin American piece of workmanship. 8. Frida Kahlo's face is on a currency. The 500 Mexican peso bill is one of a kind in that it contains 2 pictures, one on each side. The pair are the well-known couple, Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera, 2 of the nation's most commended specialists and characters. The 500 peso bill was delivered to stamp the centennial of the Mexican Revolution and contains the Diego Rivera quote written in small content. It has been said that the revolution does not need art, but that art needs the revolution. That is not true. The revolution needs revolutionary art. 7. She turned into a painter after a lethal accident. On September 17, 1925, Frida and her companion Alex were riding in a means of transport when it collided with a road streetcar. Recovery after the transport mishap assumed control north of a year, during which time Kahlo surrendered her pre-drug program and started painting. Her dad, a craftsman, loaned her his oil jeans and brushes, while her mother charged an extraordinary easel so Kahlo could paint in her medical clinic bed, and had a mirror put in the overhang, empowering Kahlo's self-picture. 6. She is known as the expert on self-portraits. In her career, Frida Kahlo made 143 artworks, out of which 55 are self-pictures. Kahlo said, "I paint myself since I'm so frequently alone, and in light of the fact that I am the subject I know best." Her self-representations frequently incorporate an understanding of physical and mental injuries. Frida Kahlo's self-picture is considered among the best at any point made. Her most renowned self-picture is maybe self-portrait with fawn necklace and hummingbird. 5. Frida's painting is the main work by a 20th century Mexican craftsman to be bought by a universally prestigious historical center. In 1939, the Louvre purchased Kahlo's The Frame, making it the principal work by a 20th century Mexican craftsman to be bought by a universally eminent exhibition hall. Notwithstanding such an achievement, Kahlo was as yet known for the vast majority of her life and the 20th years as the spouse of Diego Rivera, whom she wedded in 1929. Since the 1980s, however, Kahlo has been known for her own legitimacy. A few memoirs have been composed and motion pictures about her life have been made. Her previous home, La Casa Azul, is presently a gallery. The biggest show ever of her works of art, held the previous summer for the 100th commemoration of her introduction to the world, broke all participation records at Mexico's Museum of the Fine Arts Palace, despite the fact that it was just open for a very long time. 4. Frida Kahlo was a bisexual. Kahlo's marriage with Rivera was turbulent, with both having different illicit relationships. Frida had illicit relationships with all kinds of people. Rivera even had an unsanctioned romance with Kahlo's more youthful sister Cristina, which rankled Kahlo. They separated in 1939, yet remarried a year after the fact. Despite the fact that their subsequent marriage was just about as upset as the first, Kahlo stayed wedded to Rivera till her passing. 3. She engaged in extramarital relations with the pioneer behind the Red Army. The organizer behind the Red Army, the popular Russian progressive Leon Trotsky, came to Mexico to get political shelter from the Soviet Union. He initially remained with Rivera and later had an unsanctioned romance with Kahlo. Kahlo made a work of art named Self-Portrait dedicated to Leon Trotsky to honor her short undertaking. 2. Frida Kahlo is a dear companion of the American craftsman Georgia O'Keeffe. The two painters met in December 1931 at the launch of Rivera's enormous independent presentation at New York's Museum of Modern Art. As indicated by one of Rivera's partners, the acclaimed muralist later gloated that his better half had been playing with O'Keeffe. Frida Kahlo composed a couple of letters to Georgia O'Keeffe, an imaginative demigod almost 2 times her age, whom she'd become friends with while living in New York. 1. She became renowned years and years after her passing. Kahlo kicked the bucket 20 days after her 47th birthday celebration on July 26, 1954. A couple of days before her passing, she wrote in her journal, "I trust the exit is happy, and I trust never to return. Frida." Kahlo was tolerably fruitful during her lifetime, and it was just a brief time after her passing that her work turned out to be generally acclaimed. During her lifetime, she was, for the most part, referred to in Mexico as Rivera's significant other. Presently, she is famous overall, and Rivera is known as her better half. 2 renowned motion pictures have been made of her life. Various articles, books, and narratives have been made about Kahlo's life and craftsmanship, including The Success of Frida, the biography of Frida Kahlo, 1983, by Hayden Herrera. The film, Frida, Naturaleza Viva, was delivered in 1983 and was an enormous achievement. In 2002, one more true-to-life film, Frida, in which Selma Hayek assumed her part, netted more than $50 million and won 2 Academy Awards. She is viewed as one of the main craftsmen of the 20th 100 years and Mexico's most prominent imaginative product. She confronted seemingly unfavorable difficulties, yet figured out how to carry on with a rich and full life that the greater part of us can merely fantasize about. Not exclusively was Frida an impressive craftsman, however, she was likewise engaged with legislative issues and was an exploring feminist. That's all we have from today's video. We hope you got to learn something new. For more such awesome content, like this video and subscribe to Creativersity. For now, we will make a move. Thanks and goodbye.